Hello friends, this is the Owl. So yeah, after reading it, wait for it, Hunter x Hunter is a good manga. Maybe not quite up to the hype, but certainly good. Yeah, that's about it. Anyways, before we finish for the okay, fine. I get it. You want something a bit more deep divey, I assume. But I'm not really sure what you expect. This is a manga that has been dissected and analyzed and talked about with probably hundreds of thousands of hours of content. So, okay, I'll do my best. You know, as you get older, there are some 4-word phrases that will likely make your blood run cold. License and registration, please, is a classic. As is, I'm with the IRS. And as a husband, well, I told you so also ranks rather highly. But as a manga tuber, albeit a C-lister, the phrase I dread more than any other is, "It gets good later." Oh boy, do I not want to read stuff when you tell me that. Because from my experience, especially when it comes to battle shonen, you're looking at a dozen volumes of a manga running in place, looking for a tone and waiting for the plot to happen. Oh, and lots of wacky humor. Ugh. Seriously, all the big three have this problem, as do most standard battle shonen, frankly. And Hunter x Hunter. Wait, what? The X is silent. Alright. And Hunter x Hunter. Boy, that's going to be hard to remember. Which, spoiler, clearly massively influenced at least one of these. Defos has it too. Aside from that, well, what do you want me to say? Hunter x Hunter is such a beloved, analyzed, written about, spoken about, and quite possibly, wait, let me check. Yep, there it is. Fucking sung about manga, with oodles of deep dives that I am not sure what you expect some piddle shit little horror manga tuber to even say. Seriously, this may be the biggest of the big dogs, often spoken about in the same breath as stuff like One Piece, meaning that I'm gonna get comments either way, aren't I? So let me explain this one right off the bat and try and head it off to prevent another Bleach scenario. My feelings regarding Hunter x Hunter were probably similar to what my mates felt when I asked them to play something like Diablo II or Baldur's Gate. Like, yeah, the games are still good, maybe still excellent, but they also haven't aged perfectly, and there is some stuff that really has just evolved since then. That said, please do not get me wrong. Before a million Hunter x Hunter fans come and poop down my chimney, I know why this manga holds such a special place in your hearts. It's basically manga history. And as this was requested by a contest winner way back in 2023, well, Ring, I told you I would get around to it. And don't blame me, this is not a manga that comes out of the gate swinging. So let's do this, and I guess we will need to start at the beginning. Mangaka Yoshihiro Togashi, who, boy did this one bake my noodle, is actually married to frigging Naoko Takeuchi, who you may know from a tiny little manga called Sailor Moon. It is a small world and a smaller industry. But yeah, by this point, Togashi was kind of an industry veteran, having a bunch of manga under his belt, including one long runner called... Okay, so, I'm gonna be honest here. Yu Yu was one of the big reasons I was leery about reading this. As while I know some people love it, it never tickled my pickle at all. It felt far too derivative of Toriyama's work, and while the start was pretty interesting, it also felt like several mangas sort of Seth Brundled together. And apparently there was a bunch of behind-the-scenes dickery that fouled it all up, which, yeah, that sort of thing always sucks to hear. Anyways, Hunter x Hunter was started, by the sounds of it, growing out of Togashi's adjustment and anxieties around becoming a dad, which, yeah, does that one hit home? That shit will change you, man. And follows, yeah, sorry, This chap may be the most Shonen Jump looking protagonist to ever Shonen Jump, a kid named Gon. His goal is to eventually find his father Ging, who apparently just sort of went out for a pack of smokes one day, and to do this he will need to become a hunter, a poorly defined sort of professional adventurer thing. He's quite Naruto-esque, only substantially less ball-achingly annoying at the start at least, but with a healthy dash of Son Goku. Gon is actually not a dreadful protagonist, managing to sidestep most of my gripes with your standard shonen protagonist. He's not blisteringly stupid for one, and actually does, to some extent, act like a human being. Aside from this, as mentioned, the manga does not start strong. The art is really wobbly for one, the characters are arch, and the pacing is all over the place. And unfortunately, this will be the case for a while. The art in particular, I know Togashi actually redrew a bunch of panels for volumes, but it's still up and down in terms of quality. But at least I can generally tell where everyone is and what they're supposed to be doing, which, believe you me, is kind of a marvel for the era. And don't make me say it, fine, it gets good later. We start out with the much derided exam arc, which sees Gon making his way through a series of difficult and kind of arbitrary tests, meeting up with several other colourful characters like the enigmatic Kurapika, the noble Leorio. Boy, when you put that one in English, it's kind of a phonetic car crash. Leorio. Ugh. And the, well, let's just say this outright, the insanely influential and unfortunately thirsted after Killua. Seriously, this little edgy boy, oh man. According to Mrs. Owl, the fan fiction around this dude will make you want to eat a kitten sundae. But this arc actually reminded me a lot of the Chunin exam arc from Naruto. And not just because it follows a similar structure, minus the ingenious written test portion, but because far too much of it is spent playing fiddle dick in a forest until a pale, sexually ambiguous, and effete big bad shows up. Ah, Hisoka, I could make all the jokes, but the manga just kind of goes ahead and makes them for me. This dude is basically written as a psychotic fey clown that is also peddling some serious files, if you get my meaning. There is literally a panel later on where he appears to be ogling the two leads' boy butts, and that's just, dude. Anyways, this arc all culminates in a fighting tournament because of course it does, and while the pacing in the arc is sort of glacial, this bit kind of rules. One thing to note here, and this will get even more extreme and pronounced as we go. The gore in this manga is absolutely wild. Seriously, I had to double check, but this was indeed the 90s. So how this snuck into Jump, I genuinely do not know. But we have exposed viscera, arms being ripped off, limbs being mangled, heads being knocked off, and hearts being torn out. This was the start of the big manga censorship push, and as I talked about extensively in Violence Jack, this was no minor outcry. But even by modern standards, this manga is dark and bloody as hell. I actually had to double back and check that this was indeed a Shonen Jump manga and not a slightly looser publication like Besatsu or Manga 1, because all it's missing are a few female nipples, and this is more seinen material. Yes, I know the shonen seinen thing is not quite an age rating system, and it's more about where your manga is published and who exactly it's targeted at, except it kind of is. We will talk more about this in just a bit, and we've talked about it extensively before. Anyways, feeling underpowered and in search of training, the following arc sees Gon and Killua go to the big city to join a fighting circuit. The pair train up and learn about Nen, which is another thing that was clearly a massive inspiration for Naruto's chakra and jutsu system, and I'm not surprised. It is a legit amazing power system and beats your standard manga hand wavium by a mile. Oh, and Hisoka is there too, out of some creepy obsession with Gon, waiting for him to get stronger so they can have a proper Barney. This arc is fine, but once again feels like Togashi wasn't quite sure what sort of manga he was writing here. Our next arc though is a biggie. The York New, get it, arc. Or as I like to call it, 20% amazing battles, 80% exposition and boring auction talk. Oh, and yet again, entire segments feel like they're from a different manga. Here, a sort of mafia drama, with mild supernatural elements. In particular, a prescient girl who guides her father with her prophecies, and it feels like she's written sympathetically, only she collects body parts. Well, alright. But yeah, this one is in places, but it is at least where the manga really starts hitting its stride, as the main characters are drawn together in search of a mysterious and expensive rare video game that may contain the key to Gon finding Ging. This results in them and the Mafia, who are, bizarrely enough, written as kind of good guys here, facing off against the Phantom Troop. Stupidly overpowered numbered villains. Is this where that came from? If so, thanks Togashi. I have always adored this concept. But one of these chaps is Hisoka and yep, they're strong. Now, I know there are people out there that adore York New, but I found it to be, honestly, a lot like Water 7 in One Piece. The good stuff is so good that it's easy to forget how slow and fragmented the arc is in places. And yeah, this criticism applies to most of the manga, to be honest, with way too many plot lines going in different directions at all times, way too much space taken up by prolonged sequences of Gon and Killua trying to earn money in just a random tangent, and boy, if you've watched my content, you would know that that takes a lot of saying. But spoiler, their efforts turn out to be entirely wasted, meaning that there is maybe a volume of content here about as pointless as Skype here. And the arc turns out to end with a huge pair of blue balls. Sadly, this will be a theme moving forwards. Oh, one thing I have to point out. The arcs actually flow together really well. One leads organically into the next, and sure enough, the following arc, another chonker, Greed Island, takes place inside the video game, kind of. It's not especially important, you will get there. And as an arc, it actually feels a lot better. Pacing is more consistent, characters are more defined, the story feels 100% more focused, and while the new elements added are a touch, well, gamey, and this is from someone who, believe it or not, really likes card battlers, the fights rock, the emotional beats are strong, and we actually feel that the plot is starting to tick along, rather than being a case of and then writing. Oh, and we meet Biscuit, who I was positive was going to turn into the Sakura of the trio, but nope, she's more the Yoda. If Yoda could turn into a muscle chick. Insert Joe Cat reference here. Boy, internet, you suck sometimes. But yeah, much like Greed, we segue artfully yet again into, oh yeah, this is the bit you were all waiting for, and I'm guessing those of you who keep asking me to cover this, well, you had this in mind. The notorious Chimera Ant arc, which, yeah, okay, so this one is probably the bit that made people love this manga retroactively. Hell, even the weaker preceding arcs. And yeah, while it is as long as a standalone manga by itself, sorry folks, it sucks. Nah, just kidding. I had you going there, didn't I? The Chimera Ant arc absolutely rocks. If the entire manga had been as good as this arc, which is not to say it's perfect, our old friend pacing issues appears from time to time, but I would have been blown away with joy if all of it had been on par. It is also arguably the darkest stuff I have ever read in a Shonen Jump battle manga to date. Seriously, we have kids getting eaten alive somewhat graphically, decapitations, scooped out skulls, eviscerations, tons of dismemberment, heads exploding, and a way darker tone. Seeing Gon turning into more of an anti-hero. even darker than Killua, yeah, the guy that rips out hearts. Shonen Jump, everyone! But it's also really well written and quite profound. Yeah, the big bad, Meriem, however you say that. Once he moves past being an overt nod to the Cell Saga, and no, this is not even trying to be subtle. I had a good chuckle at a bunch of stuff in this as a big DBZ fan, is one of the most interestingly written and challenging characters I have read in a while, as we see his gradual epiphany and move towards humanity, mirroring Gon's descent into darkness. Again, good writing. And this arc is, oh right, you know what? We're going to do a short tangent on this as it's really bloody interesting. So, people who have read Hunter x Hunter, as opposed to those watching the apparently heavily censored anime, which, spoiler, I haven't watched. Boy, I miss the days where I had the discretionary time to watch anime. Especially those who are late to the party will notice something. From the start, the manga was explosively gory and pretty damn dark. Then, suddenly, in the early 2010s, or presumably midway into the Ants arc, overt censorship, with dark boxes placed over even moderate gore, and then the manga seemingly being toned down a lot. Oh, there's a bit of blood and dismemberment, but nothing like the brains and guts and eyeballs and general nastiness from the previous arcs. Now, this is going to be a little anecdotal and a lot speculative, but I have to wonder if this manga ran afoul of 156. What is 156, you ask? Insert obligatory tangent here. Okay, so I won't make this a gigatangent, but I've been wanting to talk about this for quite some time now. I think I've mentioned it in passing, especially in Gantz and Violence Jack, but manga, especially the darker stuff, has always been quite controversial, both in the West and in Japan. See, in the early 60s, out of fear of what was perceived as the increasing westernization of Japanese youth, as well as a rise in juvenile delinquency, several laws were enacted, particularly the Tokyo Metropolitan Ordinance on Health Development of Youth. Crikey Moses, no. We're just going with HDY moving forwards. And this basically said that anything more edgy than Doraemon cannot be sold to anyone under 18 and preferably not to anyone at all. See, manga was supposed to be all butterflies and sunshine and little bunnies hopping in the forest. Educational bunnies if possible, and if not, at the very least, inoffensive bunnies. Oh, there were adults-only mangas, but they were heavily frowned upon. But, as this law was something of a paper tiger, almost never enforced, and mostly going by the honor system, relying on self-regulation by publishers, essentially saying, no, we won't publish anything too nasty. The market was primed for the 70s and 80s, which brought in a tidal wave of way darker, way bloodier, and often overtly horny manga, drawn by awesomely sick bastards like Gon the Guy. You know, stuff like Devilman, but especially Violence Jack. Targeted at all the teenage boys because, yeah, blood and tits. And these of course sold like absolute hotcakes. But this kicked off a fair bit of controversy, and both due to drafted legislation enhancing these laws and a general fear that this would result in a huge crackdown on publishers, which definitely ran afoul of the broadly worded and frankly authoritarian HDY. We eventually wound up with a pretty strict division between seinen publications, not to be sold to anyone under the age of 18, wink wink, and shonen publications, and within those your stricter ones like Jump, who typically do not let much gore through and defos no sexy stuff, which is probably why your average Jump protagonist is somewhere between asexual and clueless. However, things continue to still slip through, especially in other publications. And I guess this is how you got anomalies like Hunter x Hunter, which were presumably such a massive draw that Shueisha just basically threw up their hands and went, fine, we didn't see nothing. Then came 2010, which, due to various reasons, including the growing popularity of Japanese media with kids and teens worldwide, and I guess what people would call political correctness, growing concerns over content, mostly video games related, but also literature and media, and the fact that most of this manga was wildly inappropriate by Western standards, as well as a few other controversies, specifically the entire wretched lolicon debate. Let's never do that one. All resulting in the HDY resurfacing and finally being officially revised with massively strict controls on content, essentially criminalizing just a lot of stuff in any material featuring child or childlike characters, so most shonen manga, and banning certain kinds of pornographic content outright. This kicked off a firestorm of its own within Japan, as this revised HDY was massively overreaching, incredibly broad and ambiguous, and so unpopular. Remember, manga and anime, while not as popular as people in the West would think, at least within Japan, are still really important from a cultural perspective, giving big names a fair amount of clout. We saw protests and all sorts of noise, and eventually it was revised again into the now notorious Bill 156, which did focus more on overtly sexual situations, but did, however, result in a chilling effect on shonen publications. And while some, such as Besatsu, played things a bit more risky, Shonen Jump allegedly cracked down hard. And the timing makes me wonder, was the Chimera Ants arc so frigging dark and bloody that it in part scared Shueisha into censoring it? I've never been able to find out for sure, and again, this is mostly internet people talking with other internet people and just blue skying, which as far as I see it, may be the only source less reliable than I heard it from a man down the pub. But I think this might actually be the case. Although, while I cannot show you this, we do see some explicitly shown sex toys on a bed after an implied rape scene. Crikey Moses, Hunter x Hunter. So what the hell do I know? Does anyone know offhand why Shonen Jump manga, since the 2010s, have tended for the most part to be a lot tamer than Hunter x Hunter? Let me know in the comments, as yeah, it's interesting regardless. Anyways, ramble over, let's get back to it. So yeah, the Ants arc, it's really bloody good, really bloody long, like seriously, this is One Piece arc length. Introduces a ton of characters, most of whom are kind of cool. And while they do definitely pull focus away from Gon and Killua, especially this chap, Morel, who I have to wonder, is this the Megaka's pet character? I don't know. But it feels more like the start of something. It's setting up Gon's arc to come, some new primary side characters, an expanded world, a few wrinkles added into our main quest, revealing that, yeah, hunters are not, in their way, always a force for good, exactly. War is hell and all that. It's cool, it's different, and there's a reason why I think that this arc is probably the reason why people love this manga so much, and I get it. While I don't necessarily see myself rereading Hunter x Hunter, I may well just reread this arc. It's that good. Kind of. See, the ending to the Ants arc, which, okay, to spoil a manga from decades ago, Gon, despite getting his new, stupidly powerful and frankly kind of silly looking new form, seriously, what is with that hair? You look kind of like an overpowered teabag, mate. Never actually faces the big bad, or even really gets a proper fight against a strong enemy. Miriam dies of radiation sickness in a peaceful game of chess against his one true friend in, yeah, this bit legit made me tear the hell up. And again, really set me up to be legit excited about what would follow. But I won't lie, I wanted a big battle between these two. Not brother in the fucking land, and I swear, if you get the reference, you also had a cool childhood. But yeah, the stage was set, and I was stoked to see what would happen next. Only what would follow would be the election arc, which, okay, so I know some people like this one, but it's what I would call a status quo arc. Think Fullbring, as it mostly exists for the story to ride itself out of a hole and get us back to the pre-hole times. And yes, I apologize if my audio sounds a bit funny. There are a bunch of birds outside going absolutely Billy berserk since 4 a.m. But yeah, I guess if you're gonna write Gon losing a limb and becoming this silliness and also being in a coma, you do have to write yourself out of it, and yeah, I know while some people do dig it, I found it emphatically fine. Nice to see the other characters and spend some time with Killua, I guess. And yeah, I know some people love the little bastard. I can take him or leave him. But we do finally get Gon healed up and he gets to meet Ging at last, with Ging's reasons for abandoning him being one of the most frustrating elements in the entire story, and they're kind of mean-spirited if you think about it. Essentially, he went out for a pack of adventures and never returned. Ging sucks, but see, this would mark the end of the good times and herald the start of Hunter x Hunter's downfall, or at least its stagnation, as the next arc, the so-called Secession arc, which was shaping up to be the biggest, most complex, most ambitious, and probably the penultimate arc, with a crapzillion moving parts, a ton of characters, everything building momentum in a way that reminded me a lot of Wano. But unfortunately, due to various health issues, Togashi began putting the manga on hiatus. Yeah, there had been a handful before, but this rapidly got out of control. And while we did see the plot finally get rolling again, another sort of tournament, us focusing in on the Dark Continent, the source of the Chimera Ants, and all sorts of crazy stuff involving a battle of secession in a foreign empire. Oh yeah, and the return of the Phantom Troop. The arc is hiatus central. And yeah, I get it, and I would never expect a mangaka to risk their overall health to produce more media for me. And while I think the arc has potential, and I know, once again, some people like it, I found it really disjointed, and I don't know if it'll ever be finished. And as I don't like reading unfinished stuff, it frankly killed my enjoyment. But yeah, problems aside, at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, I really like this manga. I don't know if Hunter x Hunter is quite as good as everyone makes it out to be, but this may also be a product of me reading it so many years after it came out. Had I read this at the time of publication, it probably would have blown my nutsack out of my left ear. But while I would love to see Togashi rally and give us another 100 or 200 chapters to give the manga the wrap-up it deserves, I don't know if it'll happen, and frankly, maybe that's okay. Unfinished symphonies and all of that. And yes, we've all seen what happens when a Jump manga outstays its welcome. I guess you either die Kimetsu no Yaiba, or live long enough to have Kaguya appear and send your manga off into the wibbly-woos. Next time, something a bit more substantial. Anyways, before we finish for the day, I want to express my appreciation for and gratitude to, as always, our amazing patrons. I am not even slightly exaggerating when I say that. Without them, this video would not be a thing at all. So before you thank anyone for this, thank them. This little patron drive has been decent, and I genuinely appreciate it all so much. So, from all of the owls, a massive thanks to Miss Flatwoods, Cheshire Quill, Cookie Dough, Cam Cam Trigger, Cole Boquet, Melissa Marston, BK, Amber, Taylor Smith, Ang, Alice Teacup, Mally Pepper, Sam Glasper, Brendan, Majestic, The Spilled Milk, Kamarian Lindsay, Taylor Smith, Tak2M, Sefit, Anna MC, Miu Haku, John Nepp, Huna Hex Chen, Adclear Andrew, Nate Corbin, Fluffy Burb, Kamolian, Endymion, Jake, B Empress, Simone, Squid, Emily, The Hedgehog Gamer, Rafty, Maverick Muna, #Hermit, Yorgborg, William, Oishipan, Erin Arnold, Sallyface, JMD Reed, Raid, Kozin Doji 180, Mootle, RJ Grendelsire, Hamwise the Stout, Jaylenar, Mike, Chilled Ice, as opposed to Warm Ice, Range Danger, Rose Montgomery, Inuki Koji, John Nepp, Kel Kaur, Opinion Custard, Robert Dote, Cho Jin, Wargle, Hunting for R2D2, Jaylenar, Lee, Eleanor, Crazy, Question Man 6, Ringmuskel, although I think they go by Mina now, Callie Caris, JL, Lance Goebel, Piece of Yeast, Cheddar, Lightspeed. Oh right, and I also want to give an even specialer thanks to Jathis and Fogweaver, our 2 resident Albard patrons. That is so generous, you guys. Much appreciated. A reminder, Albards get to commission a deep dive series, which is how we got Biomega, Should Be a Goldfish, and something will be starting soon. Otherwise, if you do want to support us, head on over to our Patreon. Aside from the Patron Drive milestones, there are some fun rewards, including exclusive emotes and things on the Discord, an exclusive video, my audiobook, which I do hope to update soon. I'm just waiting on something cool from Mrs. Owl, an exclusive channel, and some other cool stuff. And there are also some other unique rewards for higher tiers, and if you have anything you would like to see as a reward, you could always let me know. If you want to support us in other ways, Mrs. Owl's editing and art commission services are still available. And as always, all links are in the description. Aside from that, we also have a Discord. And the little community we have over there is just, it's so wholesome. Go and check it out. But yeah, thanks again. This little patron drive has been a lot of fun thus far. And who knows, we may even make it an annual thing. Until next time, my friends, this is the Owl, signing off.